Hello again, everyone. This is Alex with Wolfe Incorporated. Thank you today for joining us on our Wolfe webinar, Oral Fluid Drug Testing in the Workplace. It is officially 1:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we're going to get started here with the webinar. I am joined today on the webinar by Melissa Michalunas. She is our Director of Sales and also our Director of Sales and Director of Client Advocacy. Sorry, mouthful there. And I'm Alex Cummings, the Marketing Manager here at Wolfe Incorporated. I want to start off with a really quick legal disclaimer for everybody. Let you know this presentation is for educational purposes only. Capital letters, bold, underlined 10 times. It is not intended as a substitute for legal advice of an attorney knowledgeable in the field of workplace drug and alcohol testing. The presenter makes no assurances regarding the accuracy or completeness of the following information, legislative, regulatory, or case law. So with that said, I'll introduce myself again, Alex Cummings, the Marketing Manager here at Wolfe Incorporated, and Melissa Michalunas, our Sales Manager and Director of Client Advocacy at Wolfe Incorporated. For today's agenda, we're going to discuss what is oral fluid drug testing. We're going to talk a little bit how this is a very simple solution for the complex world of drug testing, when and how you can use oral fluid drug testing, and we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of today. Now I'm going to pass it off to Melissa, and she's going to give you a couple of the key words for today's webinar.
Good afternoon. This is a great opportunity for us to learn a few new things about oral fluid testing. Again, if you guys have questions, please do not hesitate to ask those. We will do our best to address all of those during the webinar and as well at the end of it in the Q&A. So some of the key words, the things that we'll be discussing today is one, the oral fluid device itself. So the Quantasol is the device that Wolfe Keystone uses. It's an absorbent collection device that is placed in the mouth, typically under the tongue, and then it collects saliva so that it can be used to screen for drugs of abuse. One of the key things about a oral fluid device is that you really want to use one that has an indicator on it. So that's one of the most important things. The great thing about oral fluid is the adulteration. So as we know with urine, it's very easy to adulterate the sample. With oral fluid, it is following the proper collection procedures, which we will review later in the webinar. It is almost impossible to get that adulterated. So you're getting a true sample that's been observed as far as collection process goes.
So our third key word for today's webinar is going to be metabolite. Metabolite is a product of the metabolic action resulting chemical nomenclature byproduct of another product. Okay, you may be asking yourself, that was a whole lot of words there. Essentially, what a metabolite is when you take in any substance in your body, the metabolite is what that substance comes out as. So for example, if somebody is smoking marijuana, it'll go in the system as that, but it comes out of the system as a THC substitute. So that's kind of what a metabolite is. When we are doing drug testing, we're not actually testing for the marijuana or the cocaine. We're actually testing for the metabolite of those products. Once they pass through the body takes that in the metabolic action and actually changes that chemical compound into another chemical compound that is excreted out via saliva, urine, your hair, anything else like that. And then our fourth word is substituted. This is any sample not produced by the donor. This would be typically in the case of a urine sample. People may bring in samples in a plastic Ziploc bag, or they may have somebody else's urine inside of a pill bottle or something like that. I mean, we've seen a little bit of everything that people do. And that's what substituted means. It's not actually that donor specimen. They have acquired that specimen from somebody else, not themselves. So, drug use in the workplace. The reason that we did this webinar is because we get so many phone calls all the time. People are tired of hiring the wrong employees. The other questions that we want to make sure that you get here and understand: do you spend a lot of precious time and resources to bring in people that end up costing you money and damaging your reputation? Later on in the webinar, we're going to give you some statistics by SHRM and also SAMHSA that showcase the actual cost of hiring the wrong employees, and the wrong employees that are actually doing drugs, and how much they can cost the company every year, and how much they cost the United States in the billions of dollars every year. So we want our partners that we partner with here at Wolfe to stop wasting your precious hours chasing ineffective people and get information that will help you make the best hire and keep the best employees at your business. So like we said before, on this slide here, you'll see that it's estimated that 10 million to 12 million drug users are currently in the workplace. When they classify drug users, they classify drug users as a hard drug user, but they also classify them as habitual, somebody that may just be doing something recreational as well. They may smoke marijuana once every couple months or something like that, but that is a drug user classified here. The U.S. Department of Labor estimates that between $129 billion and $189 billion a year are lost due to productivity from drug use in the workplace. Drug users are also said to be 33% less effective than their coworkers at the job that they're doing. And drug users are said to cost employers between $7,000 and $15,000 annually. Now that last statistic, $7,000 to $15,000 annually, that is per employee that is a drug user in your company. So if you have 2 drug users, now you're $14,000 to $30,000 annually estimated that you could be losing at your company for their ineffectiveness, that there may be healthcare issues, that they're going to a doctor to get prescription drugs, opiates and things like that. All of that stuff comes back to your bottom line as a company. And that's what we wanted to showcase here on this slide. So on our next slide here, the benefits of oral fluid drug testing, I'm going to pass it off to Melissa, and this is her area of expertise.
Yeah, so benefits of oral fluid drug testing. There are many reasons that companies are starting to look and have looked at either incorporating oral fluid testing into their current program or switching over to it as their main source for drug testing. The process is very simple. It's convenient. The collection device is very easy. Samples can be collected virtually anywhere, anytime. So you don't have to worry with some of the issues that you do with urine. No restrooms are needed. That's a huge thing, because with urine testing, it's really important that you secure your restroom and make sure there's bluing in the water source is cut off. With oral fluid testing, there's no need for that. So you're able to collect the sample realistically right there at your desk. Gender issues. Occasionally, you may have things such as bad temperature or reasonable cause for a sample that needs to be observed. With oral fluid testing, there are no gender issues. One of the main things is that it really reduces the possibility of adulteration or tampering. So as we know, people will try to bring in other people's urine. They will try to adulterate it. There's things that they sell on the marketplace. With oral fluid, those things are very hard for them to get away with. And then, of course, back to the no gender issues, direct observation. You are constantly able to directly observe every sample that you're collecting. And the importance of that is just that you know that that sample actually came from that donor, and there's no reason for you to question it. So it keeps you in control of the collection process. So on-site collections. There's a few things here. So one of the reasons that oral fluid is a great method is because it's an on-site collection, which means no more pulling employees off the job. So a lot of companies will use collection facilities, and they have to pay them for the time they travel to the collection facility, the time that could be spent, anywhere from minutes to hours, depending on what type of collection facility. So now you're just able to really pull them into your office or into an area and do the sample. So of course, you know, that saves time and productivity for your organization. One of the main things is that oral fluid is ideal for post-accident testing. When you do have a post-accident, you want to know what they have actually had within the past, within a short amount of time. And that's what oral fluid shows, is that it shows that the usage is, it recognizes a short amount of time rather than things like urine and hair, which could be a little bit lengthier. It is also good for pre-employment testing, random testing, and reasonable suspicion. It just depends on what type of program you're looking, but post-accident testing it is just ideal for. And it's really only a 5-step collection process. It's very simple. We do provide training for this. And we'll go over the steps of the collection process in our next couple slides. So one of the reasons that we chose the Quantasol as the device that we sell and recommend is because of the drug recovery on it. There's a few devices out there that will collect oral fluid, but as you can see here, the Quantasol is the best device to actually recover the metabolite of the drug. Things like marijuana and such have in the past been an issue as far as being able to collect that at the lab. But with the Quantasol, it's just had astounding results. As you can see here, for example, marijuana. With Quantasol, it's a 91.4% recovery rate over the other devices, which are 50. And then you can just see there, PCP, there is a little difference, but as we know, PCP is something that is really not seen now in society. It is still being tested for because it's on that DOT panel and most feel like we have to keep it, but it's really not something that we see much more in our society. But as you can see here, the Quantasol is just the best device for recovering the metabolite of the drug. The Quantasol device does have liquid in the bottom of it, so after you collect the device, it goes into a substance that preserves the metabolites of the drug and makes sure that the cotton doesn't dry out. But as you can see here at this graph, the Quantasol is definitely one of the better devices on the market as far as recovery of the drugs. So let's talk about collection process. So the great thing about the Quantasol device is that the collection process is on the back of each device. So that makes it simple. If you're having to send those out into the field, you don't have to worry about sending out collection instructions or printing them off. They actually are on the device itself. So as you can see here in this chart, the device comes sealed in a packet. You have the tube, and then you have the cotton device, and that is in a separate package within the larger one. So the first thing that you want to do is you really want to make sure, if possible, the donor rinses their mouth out. So what that does is it makes sure that there's nothing in their mouth, no residual from candy, or if they did try to place something in their mouth, there's nothing there. If you cannot rinse their mouth, just make sure you wait that 10 minutes. We're constantly producing saliva, so as long as you wait the 10 minutes, so when they come in, you observe, you make sure they have no gum, no tobacco, no candy, nothing in their mouth, and then you wait that 10 minutes. And typically you can just kind of start the process of completing your chain of custody form, and by the time you get the parts completed prior to the collection, the 10 minutes will have elapsed. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to hand them the device, let them open it. You'll want them to open it, remove the tube, and then remove the packaging that has the cotton swab in it. Once they remove that, you'll have them remove the cotton swab, because obviously you want to make sure that they have a sterile device that has been untouched and is pure. So you'll have them place the cotton side of the collection under the tongue, and then the indicator on it will turn blue. Now, what that happens is it turns blue to let you know that enough saliva is sufficient. So one of the key things with collecting oral fluid is that, as you can see there in the third little image, it's really important. Gravity helps this. So you'll want to make sure that they're not holding their head up in the air to where the device is kind of tilted into the air. you'll either want to keep it level or actually even downward some. That does help oral fluid travel into the device that collects it, and will then make sure that the indicator is blue. Now, this is the time of the year when people have colds, such as myself now, and we're taking antihistamines and such. And so, you know, there is the possibility that because of medical reasons or because of medicine they're taking, they kind of have dry mouth. And it could take a little bit longer. But typically we see that the indicator turns within 3 to 5 minutes, unless there is, you know, some other type of medical reason. But you can let them keep that in there as long as necessary until it turns blue, to just ensure that you have collected enough. So once the indicator turns blue, you will insert that into the uncapped transport tube. So you'll pop the cap off, put that down cotton side, of course, in the solution. You'll snap the cap firmly. You will actually hear an audible click from that. That's important because we don't want anything to leak. And you'll want to seal the sample with the security seals from your forms. And then after that, of course, we just get that prepared to ship to the lab for testing. Let me look here. We may go ahead and answer a couple questions. So does the donor have to rinse and wait 10 minutes? If they're unable to rinse, that's okay. But I would definitely recommend the 10 minutes. That is just to ensure that there is nothing in their mouth, that if they had some sort of powder or anything, we've reproduced enough saliva to where it's not going to matter. So when I look at that, you know, rinse their mouth and wait 10 minutes. If you can't do both, then the one that I would recommend would be 10 minutes. If there's a possibility that they can rinse their mouth and wait the 10 minutes, that of course is the best practice. But if you cannot, I would definitely recommend waiting the 10 minutes.
That's great information. Thank you so much. And we'll take another moment here. Steve Ledbetter also gave us a question, Melissa, and I think this will be really good question for you. We used the collection devices, and it took about 5 minutes for the device to become saturated enough to begin yielding a result. Is there a way to have the collection device take less time to collect the result?
The only recommendation I would have is, again, if possible, have them maybe tilt their head down as you're collecting it, because gravity does help in this. So when that oral fluid travels downward, it can kind of increase the collection or decrease the collection time of the sample.
Elizabeth asked, is it possible to get an immediate result, especially for post-accident or property damage that doesn't require medical attention?
So there are a couple things on the market for oral fluid instant drug testing. You want to make sure that they're FDA approved or that they have been approved for forensic testing. Those are possibilities. That is something that we offer. And I would be more than happy, at the end of this, my contact information will be there. I would be more than happy to speak with them individually to see what their specific needs are and see how we can facilitate. I will say that with instant product, you want to make sure that your state allows it for anything post-employment. So those are some of the things that I would cover with you in that discovery process.
And I'll also add to that there, if you do get a positive on an instant product, we always recommend that you send it to a lab for confirmation purposes too.
Absolutely.
Kelly, we hope that helped answer your question as well. I saw that you asked read results on site and not send to a lab, so that should answer your question there as well. So we're going to move on to our next slide here. The THC recovery in oral fluid has always been a very big topic because a lot of times THC is a very hard substance to get in oral fluid because it is sticky. So THC is the primary compound and psychoactive ingredient in marijuana. That's what gives you that feeling of high, that effect. THC is the most prevalent marijuana compound in saliva. Like I said before, THC becomes very sticky when it's warm, and it tends to cling to porous surfaces, which again results in it being difficult to get on oral fluid testing devices. But as you saw with the Quantasol device here earlier, the Quantasol device actually has about a 91% recovery, whereas most other devices are only 50%. So that is huge. That is over 40% more collection than your typical oral fluid test on there. Move on to our next slide here.
So with oral fluid testing, we are still somewhat limited to the drugs that can be tested. That's really the downfall of oral fluid testing. I will say that it is increasing constantly. They're adding more and more drugs. But currently you have a 7-panel, which would consist of marijuana, cocaine, amphetamine, opiates, PCP, methamphetamine, which would cover the ecstasy, or the MDMA. And so just keep in mind that with lab-based testing, amphetamine would cover the methamphetamine. So it's basically your standard 5-panel. And then you have your 9-panel. So that would cover marijuana, cocaine, amphetamine, opiates, methamphetamine, your benzodiazepines, buprenorphine, methadone, and oxycodone. So the 9-panel is a very robust drug test. It's getting your methadone, which we know is prevalent in today's society. It's picking up the oxy, which we know is heavily abused. And then it's picking up buprenorphine, which is a new thing that we're hearing more and more about with Suboxone clinics. They're becoming just as rampant as methadone. So those are important things that I'm pleased to say that they're testing for, because it is something that we're seeing more and more of in today's society.
So oral fluid drug testing provides a simple collection process. So now you don't have to hear any more of, I don't have to go to the bathroom, or I didn't drink enough water today. There's no more shy bladder. Sometimes people may get the shy bladder syndrome, quote unquote, because they're nervous, they're scared. If it's an observed, it's a little bit more difficult for that person because you have somebody watching you actually urinate in the cup. There's no more worrying if the donor snuck something into the restroom with them. You know, a lot of times you'll have somebody, they may tape something to their leg, or they may stick something under their armpit, and they'll actually have a urine specimen from somebody else as a substitute because they paid somebody for it, or they bought it online, or whatever it may be. You don't have to worry about that anymore, because with oral fluid, you're directly observing them right in front of them. You've had them hopefully wash their mouth out. You've had them wait the 10 minutes, and you literally watch step by step. They take the device, they put it in their mouth, they put it back in the cup. There is extremely, extremely hard to adulterate an oral fluid test. You have no more gender-based issues. So if you have a female and she needs an observed, you don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to go find the nearest female employee that works there to watch that be observed, and vice versa for men as well. And there's no more lack of hair follicles. We have had people come to our collection facilities before that have shaved themselves completely from head to toe. And you don't have to worry about that anymore, because now oral fluid, everybody produces oral fluid in saliva in your mouth. So you don't have to worry about those people shaving themselves completely of all their hair follicles. So that's always, it's a wonderful device to use, and it gets rid of all of these other issues that we typically face in the drug testing industry.
So why oral fluid drug testing? So, I mean, we've went through many things throughout this webinar, but oral fluid drug testing is best at detecting recent drug use. So what that means is that it shows up in oral fluid quicker than it would show up in things such as urine or hair. So again, that's just another testament to why it is such a great resource to have. There are times that you want to know what someone has done within the past 24 hours rather than the past week, or if you're doing hair testing, even longer than that. So, I mean, oral fluid is just a great option for all reasons of tests, because if you have collection site issues, the reasons that Alex just went through, you know, I can't go to the bathroom, and then you're stuck sitting there with them, or someone on your staff is. You know, no more of that wondering, well, they seemed kind of nervous. I wonder if that meant anything. Those types of things. It's just a great option for all reasons of test. And it really does take the worry out of the collection process for the collector. So a lot of times people always want to know, you know, what's the detection time? What's the window of detection for oral fluid testing? Some may see this as a downfall, others see it as a positive. So most of your drugs are only going to stay in, you're only going to be able to detect those for minutes up to 48 hours. Minutes is kind of extreme, but we do have to make sure that we cover from one end to the other. We all metabolize things differently. So depending on how our body metabolizes will depend on how long it stays in our system. The one that we see the most, the difference in the detection window is marijuana. Typically, I would say that it would stay 18 to 24 hours from usage. So if you collected an oral fluid sample today and they had used on Sunday night, possibility is it may not be detected. So for some, that's a downfall. For others who just want kind of a window into someone that only uses drugs on the weekends, or especially with the new marijuana laws, you kind of may only, you know, as long as they're not doing it during work time, it's a great option. Again, I cannot emphasize enough, if they have a post-accident, even reasonable suspicion, you want to know what they have had in their system or used within the past, you know, 24 to 48 hours, not what they could have done a week ago. So, you know, oral fluid is just a great method of testing. If it's not your primary method, it's definitely one that you should look at. I kind of like to say that drug testing is like a toolbox. You have different tools in there for different situations, and oral fluid testing is definitely one that should be in there for certain reasons for tests. But as you can see, the detection window compared to urine, really marijuana is the only big differentiator, and that's because it's typically 18 to 24 hours. Other than that, they're all pretty much the same.
So here we have our state laws. So we just picked some in the general southeast area here that we wanted to go over really quick. North Carolina will have first. All types of testing are permitted as long as they take place at a certified laboratory. The only exception is applicant testing, where one may use an on-site testing device. Next, you have South Carolina. All types of testing are permitted. Random is required of all workers who receive wages or compensation in any form. Then you have Virginia. No requirements or restrictions at this time. Georgia, oral fluid can be used for applicant post-offer, reasonable suspicion, post-accident, periodic exam, follow-up, return to duty, and random drug testing. Next, you have Tennessee. All types of testing required except for random, which is permitted but not required, and return to duty, which is not mentioned. Some conditions apply to all types of required testing, such as post-offer for applicant, follow-up, for employees who voluntarily submit to rehab. However, oral fluid and hair testing are permitted or prohibited under the voluntary law. If there's anybody that's on this call that does not reside in any of those 5 states, please give us a call at Wolfe Incorporated, and we have a phone number and our sales email there as well. We'll also share some other contact information later in the presentation for you as well. So to recap from today's webinar, oral fluid drug testing is a simple, intuitive alternative to urine and hair drug testing. Again, it works great for post-accident, pre-employment, and reasonable suspicion. Test for drugs that were recently taken within minutes to hours. You have no more gender bathroom issues, no more shy bladder, and oral fluid is much harder to adulterate than any other urine samples as well. So real quick, I'm going to run through some of our services that we offer here at Wolfe Incorporated, and then we're going to open it up to the chat and the question and answers for everybody. So for those that don't know who Wolfe Incorporated is, we sell instant drug testing products. We have a background screening division. We offer lab services, including lab testing, confirmation, and MRO. MRO means medical review officer. And we do have a full-time MRO on staff here at Wolfe Incorporated. We also offer complete program management from training to legal compliance, drug testing, background screening. We have a Wolfe One platform that allows you to schedule, pay for, and view results of drug tests. It also does driver qualification, file management, and storage. You can include vaccination reports on there. You can track all different types of regulatory information there. We do lots of these amazing webinars. We have a Wolfe eSmart platform. On our eSmart platform, we have over 200 courses and programs online that you can pay for, from supervisor to employees and everything in between. It is a great tool that I really hope that everybody will just take a few minutes to visit the Wolfe eSmart side of our website. And you can actually get there by going to wolfeinc.com/eSmart. And it'll show you all 200 programs in that catalog. And we also have a blog that we update and a newsletter that we send out once a month. The Wolfe One platform, again, you can do drug testing, random program management, MVR reports, DQFMs, which are driver qualification, file management, and storage, background screening, and online training solutions. It is an all-in-one, simple, intuitive, inclusive program that captures all of the data relating to HR solutions. Again, Wolfe One has over 200 courses and programs, and it keeps you compliant with applicable federal guidelines. For our background screening, we offer a vast array of topics in background screening, but the big ones are criminal monitoring of current employees, employment history, education verification, criminal history, motor vehicle records. Those are our 5 biggest that we currently do, but we have dozens of other areas that we can do in background screening searches for everybody. So another really quick slide on our drug testing and background screening. We also do adverse action. So for those of you that don't know about adverse action, we have a webinar scheduled for 1 p.m. on March 19th, which is next Tuesday, here on the Zoom platform. And it's a free webinar, and that's on adverse action. So that might be something good for everybody to get into there. I think you would really learn a lot there, and I would hope you would enjoy that webinar very much. And I'm going to leave this slide up here. This is Melissa's contact information. Again, she is our sales manager at Wolfe Incorporated. And I'm going to take this time here to start answering some of your questions. I'll read the questions off, and Melissa and myself will do our best to answer all of these before we get done here at 2 o'clock. So Melissa, our first question here comes from Steve Ledbetter. Who is allowed to administer the oral fluid drug testing?
That's a great question, Steve. It really depends on the specific state in which you're at. So some states do require that collectors be certified, other states do not. So it would really depend on the state, but in states such as North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, there are no requirements. So anyone would be eligible to do the collection. Of course, I would recommend that they do go through some training that we can provide to them, and that you do make sure that it's employees that you trust and such, supervisors of that. But we can definitely assist you in that.
That's great. And Heather, that should answer both of your questions there as well that you just asked us. Our next question comes from Candace. How will temperature affect the sample, such as freezing, when it's sent to a lab through FedEx?
So the solution that is in the tube, the transport tube, will not freeze. So that stays just as is when it's received at the lab. Everything is sent out overnight. It typically sits in a building as well. So we have not had any issues, but the sample itself does not freeze.
Awesome. Does oral fluid testing detect THC edibles?
So I'm assuming that they're asking if it detects THC edibles, such as if anyone put the THC in brownies or in some sort of food, whether it be smoked or ingested, doesn't matter, it would detect it. If you're meaning things like gummies or something with CBD oil, that's a completely different topic, and I would be more than happy to discuss that with them one-on-one.
That's great, and I'll just add, if you smoke marijuana or vape it somehow or put it in food, it's still marijuana. It is still going to come out as a THC positive, so it doesn't matter how it's consumed or brought into the body, it will still come out as that THC. Chelsea Green asked, would this detect alcohol, or is there an option for instant product that detects alcohol?
So currently, ethanol is what's actually tested. It's the metabolite of alcohol. Ethanol is not currently detected with using the Quantasol device, but we do offer a couple different devices for oral fluid instant detection for alcohol that are very simple to use. So if they want to shoot me an email or reach out to me, I would be more than happy to discuss those and send some samples if needed. But we do offer a couple different options, and like I said, they're very simple to use and very cost effective as well.
Our next question comes from Jennifer. If the oral fluid test is positive, does it get sent to the lab for confirmation like a urine test?
So yes, if they're using an instant oral fluid device, the instant oral fluid devices do not collect enough saliva to send to the laboratory. So you would have to go to the Quantasol and use that device for your secondary device to be sent into the laboratory. Does that answer that question?
I think that answered that question very well. Our next question comes from April Johnson. She writes to us, use Oratech oral fluid drug screen device for pre-employment. They only use the Quantasol device for positive results from the Oratech. Would you be able to answer any questions on the Oratech device or give me more information on if I should just use Quantasol instead?
So it really depends, April, on what type of program you're wanting to use and what your goals are for your drug testing program. So I would assume you're using an Oratech oral fluid device because you have a need to get some sort of instant test result. Now, providing that that is applicable in your state, then I don't see anything wrong with that. The main thing is that if you do have one that's a non-negative on an instant device, then it is required that you send it into the laboratory in the state of North Carolina, and it's always best practice to do that regardless. You want a forensic drug test result to make a decision on if you're basing your result on the drug test. I would be more than happy to answer any additional questions regarding the Oratech or the Quantasol. But if you use the Oratech, then you would need to use a Quantasol to send it in for confirmation.
That's great information to know. Thank you, Melissa. So one question that we actually got on our website earlier this week was, does chewing gum or a breath spray, almost like a mouthwash, does that have any effect on an oral fluid test?
So those could, because they do have some sort of alcohol in them, especially like a Banaka spray or something like that. That is why when you do oral fluid testing, you have to be adamant about the 10-minute wait time and, if possible, rinsing the mouth out, because that will ensure that there's nothing in their mouth that would affect the outcome of a drug test.
That's good to know. Well, anybody, if you have any other questions, we do have the Q&A box up, and we also have the chat box up. So if anybody would like to ask any other further questions, we're going to stay on here a few more minutes there. I'm also going to release our poll now. You'll see popping up on your screen, there'll be a poll. If you guys could please answer those 4 questions for us, it will greatly help us to know if this presentation and webinar here was effective. Your first question will be just rate this on a 1 to 10, 1 being not good, 10 being excellent. How likely are you to recommend Wolfe to a colleague? 1 is not likely, and 10 being very likely. The third question, what type of HR solutions does your organization utilize? And is your current program management software integrated with your internal systems, ATS? So if you guys could answer those questions for us really quick, that would be extremely beneficial and helpful to us. I appreciate that very much, and I've launched it there now, so you'll be able to answer those questions as we continue to talk here. We had another question come in from Heather. Are there any CLIA waived saliva drug tests?
So currently there are, and I would need to refresh my memory, but I do not think there are any CLIA waived oral fluid testing devices that can be rebilled on insurance. There's an FDA approved device, which is the Quantisol and the Oraler, and then there's a T-Cube device, which is approved for forensic tests. But I will definitely look, and we have your contact information, and I will send you an email just to make sure, but I am almost 99% sure they have not issued a CLIA waive device yet.
You're welcome, Heather. Thank you for asking that question. Again, everybody, if you have any questions, there's a chat box that has popped up. There's also a Q&A. If you have any other questions at all regarding oral fluid drug testing or drug-free workplace policy, things like that, we'll be on here a few more minutes if you guys would like to ask any of those questions. And the poll is also running as well. If you could take just a few seconds, it shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds to fill out that 4-question poll. It'll really help us to know how good this webinar was today, how effective it was, and what we can also do for future webinars for everybody. I will send a reminder out that this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out the recording later on this week. So everybody that registered for this, even if you didn't attend today, you will receive a recording of this webinar, and you will also receive the PowerPoint presentation in a PDF format as well. So that'll be very beneficial to all of your businesses in helping you prepare for oral fluid drug testing and to help answer any other questions that you may have after this webinar has concluded. We had another question come in quick. How do you compare to legal challenges compared to urine testing?
Well, I would probably, there's not, there are the different methodologies in testing. So as far as anything that is challenged, on the collection side, there's less of a challenge because of the fact that you're not having to secure everything. On the laboratory side, I would say that it is, it would be the same as with urine, because it's different methodology, but they are all certified on liquid mass spec or gas mass spec. So there's really no challenges between the two.
Okay. April asked another question quick. With the instant Oratech device, sometimes lines do not appear on her test when she's giving it to employees or pre-employment.
Mm-hmm.
They're faint. Do you know why those lines would be so faint?
You know, I wish I had a more definitive answer for April, because those things, even as a collector, occasionally when I go out, they happen to me as well. And we all want to assume there's a faint line, so they must have a little bit in their system, and that's just untrue. The product insert says that you do not compare the intensity of the lines, that as long as you see a line, that it is considered negative. So I would say that it's probably just a contributor. Each one of those has different immunoassays in it. And for some reason, occasionally, it seems like they come up a little more faint than others. And I have noticed that to be more prevalent on the oral fluid device. But just keep in mind, as long as you see a line, you are to consider it negative. We do not compare the intensity of them. But great question.
That is a great question. Thank you. We're going to stay on here for about another 2 minutes. If anybody else would like to ask any other questions, we do have the webinar chat box up and the Q&A. And also, we are running our poll now. If you could just take a quick 30 seconds to answer those 4 quick questions for us, it would greatly help us with how you thought this webinar went today, and also what type of webinars we can offer you in the future. Melissa, is there anything else that you'd like to add to today's webinar?
No, I'm just, if you guys have an interest in looking at oral fluid testing and learning more about that, I just really encourage you to reach out to myself or to our sales team. We would be more than happy to help you see if this can be a good fit for you. You never know. Like I said, it's always a great tool to have in your toolbox. We can look at your policy and stuff and make sure that it does cover different methods of testing, but it is just a great tool to have. A lot of people may not use it as their primary source, but they do use it as their secondary. So I just encourage everyone, if you have questions that we may not have answered during the webinar, that you reach out to us and we will assist you in any way we can.
Thank you so much for adding that. I'd like to take just a moment here and add that Wolfe Incorporated is a trusted employer solutions company. We do everything from drug testing to background screening, program management, and everything in between. So anything that you have relating to background screening, drug testing, program management, if you're a DOT company, we do have an online solution for keeping track of all of your driver qualification, file management, and storage. If you are a college healthcare professional, if you're a professor or a dean, chair, something like that of a college, we do have the Wolfe One Plus platform, which would allow you to send an email or a text to students who are coming into your healthcare programs, and they would be able to schedule their drug test and also a background screen through that platform as well. So it is an amazing platform that has just recently launched, and we really hope to see everybody on here using all of our services, because we are a one-stop shop. There's no more, you have to get your background screen from company A, your drug test from company B, program management from company C, and then you're not even integrated with your ATS. We can do all of it, all in one solution for your HR stuff. So I'm going to sign off now. Melissa, thank you so much for doing this webinar today. You are a tremendous asset to the company and also the world of drug testing and background screening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Alex signing off today from Wolfe Incorporated. Thank you for joining our webinar. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
If you would like more information on Wolfe services, give us a call at 1-800-230-2991 or visit our website at www.wolfeinc.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put out new videos all the time. Thank you for watching this video from Wolfe, your trusted source for employer solutions.